ಈ ಕಡೆ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅದು ಬೇಡ. My blissful shallows. Today, let us know in brief all about desires. Man desires happiness. All living beings desire happiness. Why they desire happiness? Because they are not happy. That is why they desire happiness. Why they only desire happiness? You have come here and after this lecture, you go to your houses. Why you go to your houses? Because you have come from your houses. In the same way, we have come from happiness. And that is how we have to return to happiness only. We think that our mundane house is our real house. But it is not our real house. Our house is happiness. If we go to our mundane house, and if there is a cobra, and if it reaches its hood and tries to bite us, so we say, this is not our house. We cannot stay in this house. We can stay in other's house. If we stay in this house, the cobra bites us and our body dies. And if our body dies, there will be no happiness at all. Because happiness is our real house. Happiness is our real home. We can sleep in others' house. And if we will be in a position to sleep in others' house, and if we will be severely suffering by stomachache, we cannot tolerate that stomachache, severe stomachache. And what we do, we give up our prana. That means till the prana will be there in the body, there will be happiness. And when we give up our prana, we think that we will be happy. That means our body is not our home. We leave our body because there is no happiness. And when we give up our prana, what there remains is the subtle body. The gross body dies, but the subtle body doesn't die. The subtle body will be in a position to give rise to births and deaths. The subtle body is only responsible for births and deaths. Till there will be the subtle body, there will be births and deaths. Till there will be births and deaths, there will be happiness. So if at all we have to be happy, we have to destroy the subtle body. And if we have to destroy the subtle body, we have to destroy the desires for sensory objects and the body consciousness. When we destroy the subtle body, only the Atman remains. And that Atman is of the nature of happiness. That means the happiness is in the Atman. But have we been in a position to seek happiness in the sensory objects and in the body? How it is possible? So if we inquire whether there is a happiness in sensory objects or not. When we enjoy the sensory objects, so our mind becomes still, Nischala. And the happiness of the Atman only experienced. But we wrongly understand that we derive happiness from the sensory objects. Later, if we continue, so when we enjoy the sensual enjoyment through the sensory objects, the result will be tiresomeness and weariness. So sensual enjoyment leads to tiresomeness and weariness. So tiresomeness and weariness is not at all happiness. And later, if we continue the sensual enjoyment through the sensory objects, so the desire to enjoy the sensory objects increases. And when this desire for sensory objects increases, so there will be increase in unhappiness. That means sensual enjoyment through sensory objects is no happiness at all. And the other one is the body consciousness. Till the body consciousness will be there will be unhappiness. When we will have our body consciousness, there will be hunger, there will be thirst, there will be cold, there will be sunlight, there will be saltiness, there will be insult, there will be diseases, there will be old age, and there will be desire for sensory objects, and there will be the fear of death. That means the body will not be in a position to give us happiness. And if we inquire whether we are really the body or not, when we are living, we talk. But when we are dead, we don't talk. Why? That means we are of the nature of talking. And if we talk, to talk we have to have consciousness. That means our nature is consciousness, bliss. But we wrongly think that we are the body. And if in this way we destroy the desires of sensory objects and the body consciousness, the subtle body will be destroyed. And when the subtle body will be destroyed, the Atman remains. When the Atman remains, there is permanent happiness. That means our real home is happiness, bliss. If we leave our house and if we go to Dharwad, Hubli, and if we return in the evening, one day journey is over. But the journey of the Jiva will be over when he will reside in his true real self, that is the Atman. When we return to the Atman, our journey is over. Otherwise, we will be coming and going. We will be in a position to take birth and we die. We take birth, we die. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani jatare shayanam. Yasansare kaludustare krupaya pare pahi murare. That is how desire is the root cause of birth and death. And births and deaths leads to unhappiness. And again there will be unhappiness. When there is the desire for the objects which one want to have. Usually we think that a particular object gives us happiness. Then we desire it. And if the desired object is not got, our mind becomes agitated. And when our mind becomes agitated, there will be unhappiness. And again, in the other way, we think that the other particular object cannot give us happiness. And if that object will be there, how I can be happy? And if we get the object, which we don't like it, then our mind again becomes agitated and unhappiness is experienced. In this way, we like one object, we dislike other object, and these likes and dislikes lead to unhappiness. So these are the only bondages. These are only the causes for unhappiness. When the gross body dies, then the vital airs of the body will be in a position to float in the atmosphere. And the latent seeds of desires will be there in the mind. So those desires will be there till they will be fructified. They will not all be fructified at all, and there will be no happiness at all. So if the desires are there in the mind, and if we will not all be in a position to get the desired objects, when the desired objects have not been got, there will be disappointment. There will be anger. When there will be disappointment, when there will be anger, our mind becomes agitated and we experience unhappiness. When the concerned desires are not fulfilled, So the desire for power, name, and fame lead one to greed, and there will be jealousy, and there will be mean-mindedness. We desire wealth, and if we get the wealth, so that desire is fulfilled. But this leads to the form of anxiety to preserve the wealth, to save the wealth. And this preserving and saving the wealth leads to unhappiness. So to get happiness, we will be in a position to try to obtain the particular sensory object. But if one will be in a way to become an obstacle in obtaining that sensory object, so we hate them. So in the world, there are innumerable vices that have been continued in this modern world. So all the vices will be there in the modern world, and these are nothing but the modifications of the desires. If the desires will be modified, and there will be innumerable vices in the modern world. So we have desires for worldly objects. And the desires of worldly objects are iron chains. And even the human beings have been in a position to desire the heavenly objects. So the desire for worldly objects is an iron chain. And the desire for heavenly objects is a golden chain. All are chain only. The desires are chains. But the desirelessness is liberation. So if we at all we have to liberate from unhappiness, we have to destroy all the desires. When a man will be in a position to give up all the desires, the mortal man becomes immortal. So how we have to live in the world? We have to be free from all desires and engage in this outward, active in all the affairs. Then only we will be happy. Even we are egoistic. I am the body, and I do that action and this action like that. Egoism there. So we have to work, we have to act by destroying the egoism. If we act in this world by destroying the egoism and free from all the desires, so we need not experience the result of our actions. And we will be free, and there will be no rebirth for us. But what to do? The deluded jiva, the ignorant jiva, is not in a position to realize its true nature of happiness. And it has been caught up in the net of desires. One who is desireless is a king of kings. And one who is full of desires is a beggar of beggars, though he may be a multi-millionaire. The destruction of desires is moksha. And the happiness is in our pure consciousness. We are of the conscious nature. And the consciousness is of the nature of bliss. Really, we are bliss. Our true nature is happiness. But we have not been in a position to experience happiness because we have made our mind agitated. And when the desires will be destroyed, and when the body consciousness will be lost, we are always happy only. So that is how the desire is the bondage and a desirelessness liberation. If at all we have to be permanently happy, we destroy the desires and the body consciousness concerned. So the so-called desires cannot be satisfied, even though one will be in a position to possess the wealth of the whole world. The desires cannot be satisfied because there is no happiness in the world. There is no happiness in the world objects. And if there is no happiness in the world objects, how the desire can be satisfied? It is impossible. So when the desires are there, the mind becomes agitated and we will be unhappy because our pure consciousness bliss is not reflected in the agitated mind. The desire generates the thoughts. If we will have a desire to get a object in a particular shop, so we try to think, if we go to that shop, we can get the object concerned. That means the desire generates the thought. And when there is the thought, we will be in a position to develop an action. If thought is there, we act. So if there are intense desires, that will lead to extreme selfishness. If maximum desires are there, so that leads to extreme selfishness. And this extreme selfishness develops into greed. And this greed is the cause for one's destruction. If greed is there, the concerned individual is destroyed. So the conquest of desire is the conquest of birth and death. If in a particular society, wherever there is the unity and harmony, so the unity and harmony is there where there is a desirelessness. And if desire is there, there is no unity at all and there is no harmony at all. So one who gives up all the desires of the mind and who is without the sense of I-ness, that is, I am the body, and mindness, that these sensory objects will be in a position to experience eternal peace, eternal happiness. And when a man stands still in the Atman, he will be in a position to experience permanent happiness. Atma saustam mana krutva na kinchidapi chintayet. When we stand still in our blissful self, our journey will be over. There will be no rebirth at all, and we will be permanently happy. So we have desires for the sensory objects. What is the cause for that? Why we desire the sensory objects? We think that the sensory objects give us happiness. Then if that is the case, what is the cause for understanding that the sensory objects give us happiness? So for the cause for this is body consciousness. During deep sleep, there is no body consciousness and there are no desires for sensory objects. But when we get up, we will have our body consciousness. And we ask our people whether you have prepared the tea or biscuits are there, like that. That means there is happiness in sensory objects. For this understanding, there should be body consciousness. And if that is the case, what is the cause for body consciousness? The cause for body consciousness is the ignorance of our real self. We are really of the nature of consciousness and happiness. But we have thought that we are this gross body. Why we have thought that the gross body is ours? Because we have ignorance of our real nature. And if at all we have to be permanently happy, we have to remove the ignorance of our real self. And if we remove the ignorance of our real self, that is, we are of the nature of consciousness. We are of the nature of happiness. And if we understand this, and if we meditate this, and if we stand still in our real, pure consciousness, happiness, our journey will be over. There will be no rebirth. There will be no birth. There will be no body. And there will be no happiness at all. So this is all about the desires. And by this, I end my talk.